whatever them people told you I did it. What you gonna do? We going back to the house to get it in? Or you mad? Because I told you that I was gonna see that broad. And I guess you didn't believe me either. All she had to do was come back and apologize, and she didn't. I tried to tell you. I don't play about you, and I ain't gonna let nobody play in my face. Not even you. This is Bedtime Stories, Grown-Up Edition, Resurrection, Part 9. When we left off, we learned some very disturbing news about Sincere. We also got a better understanding of why Saint always seemed to place Sincere to the left. He always turned down his invitations to hang out, kept him out of his personal business, and away from any woman he was interested in. And why he'd send that message to have Natalia go and see Summer. Initially, Natalia was concerned about Saint and Summer's relationship. Her assumption was that he wanted her to go and let Summer know what was going on with him. And while she could understand, he'd want his friends and family to know what was going on. He hadn't even mentioned his sisters, and that had left her with even more questions about their relationship. She would have never guessed that he'd had completely different intentions. It was less about Summer knowing what was going on with him, and more about Summer telling Natalia what had transpired between her and Sincere when she was 16 years old. 7 years had passed since Summer was assaulted, and Sincere had never paid for that crime. Natalia figured that there was no way he wouldn't be willing to do it again if given the opportunity, and it looked like he was trying to create the opportunity. So before she left the Miami estate to head over to Summer and Miss Miracles, she found Catherine. Catherine was engaged in a heated discussion with one of her soldiers. Natalia said, "I don't mean to interrupt, but you and I need to talk." When the soldier left the room, Catherine said, "Have you rethought my proposition?" Natalia said, "No, I will not help you entrap Sincere and get him to admit that he orchestrated Saint's arrest. I want Sincere as far away from me as possible. I've packed all of my belongings, and my mother has packed all of hers." Catherine said, "Natalia, that is unnecessary. I've put guards outside your wing. They're reporting directly to me. I've made it clear to every soldier in my employ that they all report to me, and that Sincere is not in a position to give them any orders or do them any favors. If I could, I'd send him somewhere else. But I need to keep an eye on him, and he and Janelle need to figure out how they're going to co-parent." Natalia said, "Right. You gave me a proposition, and you want me to believe you didn't give Janelle one. You've got this down to a science. You need to understand that no matter what you say or what you do, I will not help you, and I don't need you. If you don't already know what your stepson is capable of, you need to know. Do you know Saint's best friend, Summer?" And when Catherine said she didn't know her, but she knew of her, Natalia asked, "Well, do you know that Sincere essayed her when she was 16 years old, solely for the purposes of orchestrating a situation where Saint would catch them in bed together, because he'd figured out that Saint was in love with Summer, and Summer had no clue. So not only do you have Saint risking his life to protect Sincere's, but you are trying to crown a predator, the head of the St. James family, while the family is at war with an international trafficking organization that, based on Sincere's behavior, he'd be a much better fit for. He's just the kind of man they hire." Catherine said, "What you know about the international trafficking organization?" Natalia said, "Enough to know. That's just the type of immoral criminal behavior they love to exploit. Now, I won't do your dirty work as far as entrapping Sincere is concerned, but I just broke a woman's confidence and exposed a secret that I'm sure she wouldn't want another person in this world to know. I think that that should be more than enough for you to agree to help my mother and I get the hell out of here without anybody who does not need to know, knowing exactly where we're going. I need you to handle this like a delicate operation, like you have a mole, and you need to keep that mole out of the know. My mother and I are getting ready to go and pay Summer and her grandmother a visit. While we're gone, the Lopez organization has arranged to have all of our belongings moved out of here, and all you need to do is ensure that whoever is responsible for getting us to Summer safely and keeping us all safe are immediately pulled from the job and replaced with a team who could not possibly have been unduly influenced by Sincere. Assign a brand new team to Summer and her grandmother on Saint's behalf, and have my mother and I escorted to the St. James airstrip. The pilot needs to be gassed up and prepared to take us where we need to go, and he'll find out where that is when my mother and I are safely on that plane." Catherine said, "And how is Saint gonna find you if—" Natalia said, "That's already handled." Catherine said, "Okay, Natalia." And then she just smiled. Natalia said, "What?" Catherine said, This is precisely why I thought you would be a good fit for Sincere. But now I see you're an even better fit for Saint. Natalia said thanks, I guess. Then Natalia headed to the wing that she was sharing with her mother and said, so, I spoke with Catherine. I'm getting ready to head over to Summers. Lock your door from the inside. Use the adjoining door to wait for me in my room. I have a sneaky suspicion that I might be getting a visitor. And Miss Eugenia said, they'll regret it. Meanwhile, in Denver, True was so annoyed with Big Wood. She was not at all surprised by his antics, but she was annoyed nonetheless. That morning, they met with her medical team, which included Maribel, a new backup OBGYN, a maternal fetal specialist, a pediatrician, the entire neonatal team, and the director of the hospital. Big Wood had called in a big favor, and Emmanuel Lopez did not disappoint. He had them doctors stepping and fetching, and agreeing to whatever he said. But nobody had asked her anything, and she was the patient. Big Wood said, what? True said, I don't know how I feel about you just coming in here and commandeering this entire experience. Big Wood said, you got what you wanted. True said, I know, but you don't think you should have discussed it with me first? You don't think we should have went in there as a united front? You don't think that you should have? Big Wood said, stop. Then he signed, what is this really about, True? True said, it's about you controlling my every move, controlling the remainder of this pregnancy, and it feels like you're trying to control my whole life. Wood signed, you said you wanted out of this hospital. You wanted to sleep in your own bed, be able to get in the tub, spend time with somebody you wasn't beefing with, enjoy the last few weeks of your pregnancy, and be able to have the conversations we need to have before our son is born. I made that happen. Instead of being thankful, you mad? True said, I'm not mad. I'm a little annoyed. I'm pregnant, not handicapped. I can make decisions for myself. Big Wood signed, that's what you've been doing for months. And I don't know that you've been making the best decisions. I'm here now. Let me handle all of this. And you focus on baking our son for as long as possible. Eating everything that I put in front of you. Drinking them concoctions that Mom Brenda creates. Enjoying your sister's company. And letting me love you. There's a world where you're in charge. And you'll get back to that when it's time. But this ain't that. True said, that's just it. I feel like you're trying to manipulate me out of returning to that world. You do realize that I don't plan to stay in Denver forever, right? As soon as I have the okay from the doctors, Genesis and I are heading to Puerto Rico. Big Wood said, no, you're not. And there was no hesitation. True said, yes, we are. I talked to Stephanie last night. If you didn't know, she gave birth to another beautiful baby girl. She delivered her at home without medication. And she's up and about, just like she was after she had baby Curry. The only difference this time is CT is right there with her, supporting her decision to succeed her uncle in the business. And while she is taking it easy, she is still calling shots. And she needs me there, right beside her. Wood signed. We'll deal with that when it's time. Right now, your only focus needs to be what we discussed in that room. You'll have all the tests run at the house twice a day. Your doctors will review the results, and they'll make recommendations that we'll discuss and try natural remedies for first. I get that you want to have this baby at home because your best friend did it twice, but in the middle of him signing, True just started talking. This doesn't have anything to do with Stephanie. I hate hospitals. I never wanted to have my baby in a hospital. Big Wood signed, don't interrupt me. We'll do what's best for our son. I just orchestrated a meeting with every professional under the sun to ensure that you could get what you want. My son's safe delivery is not negotiable. You want to assert your independence as it pertains to business? You got it, little mama. But don't fight me on this. Don't make this a point of contention. Because I'll tell these people you nuts and have you 5150. And then True just burst out laughing. She said, oh, you really think that I'm Stephanie or Rennie? Wood signed, I heard all about Rennie's shenanigans in Puerto Rico. You know what they say. Birds of a feather flock together. And True just fell out laughing. She couldn't even stay mad because Rennie had turned Puerto Rico upside down. The night before, when Indira had suggested that maybe Bosch had a deeper interest in True, True decided that she had to find out what the heck happened when Bosch went to Texas. And she was going to have to find out without asking Wood. So she decided to call Stephanie. But she couldn't call her from her phone. So she had one of the soldiers give her one of their phones. And when Stephanie answered, she was not too happy to have a soldier on her phone. She said, what the hell you want? And who the hell is this? True said, well, damn, best friend. Nice to speak to you, too. Stephanie said, oh, my God. And once the two women got over their excitement, True told Stephanie that Big Wood was alive. He'd shown up in Denver, and he was questioning her about what she'd done with Bosch. And Stephanie said, ooh, girl. Well, first, I'm so glad your man is alive. But what the hell you do to that nigga? Because he showed up in Puerto Rico. He had the unmitigated gall to confront my uncle. And the only reason why he didn't wake up dead is because you know Manny. He loves shenanigans. He respects a nigga that's willing to go toe-to-toe with him. Apparently, he left out of here looking like he's seen a ghost. And now I know why. I'm assuming that Big Wood's resurrection is supposed to still be a secret, though, huh? True said, yes. Stephanie said, well, that fills in a lot of the blanks. So, after his little confrontation with Manny, they put the YN on a plane to New York. And he showed up in Texas. Where he went, what he did, I don't know. What I do know is, he left there with broken bones in his wrist and his tail between his legs, headed right back to New York. He's there now on some assignment. And apparently he's managing to do a good job, broken arm and all. True said, damn, so you don't know what happened in Texas? Stephanie said, no, but I'm gonna find out. You want me to call you back on this number? True said, yeah. Stephanie said, now how you and my godson doing? I heard through the grapevine that you was in the hospital. True said, yeah. Wood is trying to break me out of here. I'll know more tomorrow, but as far as I can tell, we're fine. I'm a lot better now that my man is back, but... Then she told Stephanie about the ultimatum. And Stephanie said, ooh, girl, you are usually the most unproblematic of the three of us. And if you want my advice, don't tell him a damn thing. Take that to the grave. Big Wood is a pretty understanding man, but don't no man want to hear about how his girl got down with another nigga. I'm sure you didn't hold back since you thought the man was dead. You probably took that YN down through there. The way he running around with his nose wide open, showing up in Puerto Rico embarrassing himself, calling himself confronting the kingpin, and then carrying his tail to Texas to confront a dead man, only to leave with a broken arm? Girl, don't do it. Whatever Big Wood's reason was, he ain't dead, so just move on. True said, okay, I'm sure you're probably right. Now, how are you doing? CT, the kids, Rennie? Stephanie said, I'm fine, child. We got drama here in Puerto Rico, but it's being handled. And Rennie, she wreaking havoc. She came here under the guise of helping me through the last few weeks of my pregnancy. And she showed up just in time for the delivery. But she done showed the hell out, girl. True said, and what your uncle say? Stephanie said, I don't know what the hell Rennie has done. But whatever it is, she's endeared herself to my uncle. And in his eyes, she can't do no wrong. And then she told True all about Rennie's shenanigans. A few nights before Stephanie went into labor, Rennie had finally needled all of the information that she was looking for about Stacks and that lieutenant out of Stacks and everybody else that she could corner. And information in hand, she made a trip to Bellamy's, Dolo. Rennie never forgave or forgot an offense. And while she had promised the Queen Mother that she wouldn't go to Puerto Rico and kill or kidnap Stacks or anyone else, she had not promised that she wouldn't use her bag of tricks or beat the snot out of anybody. So if Stephanie laid up and True off the grid, Rennie decided to put her chemical acumen where her mouth was and make it clear that she'd been the same size since the 5th grade. So she'd had plenty of time to learn how to outsmart, outmaneuver, and outfight any woman who thought she could take her, no matter how big she was or how many broads she ran with. And Rennie had made up in her mind that she was going to teach little Miss Layla and her crew that no matter what they did for the Lopez family, they'd met their match, and they decided to cross her. She slid up in Bellamy's, looking like $1 million, played the background, and watched. She identified the waitress who'd been assigned to Layla and her crew, followed her out of the club when she got off that night, and made her an offer she could not refuse. Then the very next night, when Layla and her crew returned to Bellamy's, so did Rennie. She saddled up to the bar, waited for the waitress to approach her, slipped her a Ziploc bag underneath a $100 bill, and then kept her eye on the chick until she saw her pour the contents of that Ziploc bag into the round of drinks that she was delivering to Layla and her crew. Then Rennie waited about 15 minutes after watching Layla and her crew and Bob before she strolled over to the VIP and said, now the last time you and I saw one another, I let you know I wasn't nothing to play with, and you thought I was joking. Well, here I am. It's just me. I don't need a crew. I wreck-ish, all by myself. What's up? And Layla jumped to her feet, ready to get it in. As soon as she did, her girl stood up too. Rennie said, you shouldn't need backup. You damn near 6 feet tall, and I'm 5'5". Layla said, I don't need your help. I got this. Slurring her words and her vision was a little fuzzy, but she was overconfident, just as Rennie expected. Her girls stood back, and Layla made a beeline for Rennie. As soon as her foot hit the first step leading down from the VIP, Rennie went full Rambo. She started swinging and did not stop until Layla was laid out on the floor. And when 3 of her girls jumped down out of the VIP to attack, Rennie beat the snot out of them too. And when the rest of her girls tried to join in, They had a real hard time landing a punch or getting a hand on Rennie. Meanwhile, Rennie was running circles around them. She was pulling hair, banging heads together, kicking, scratching, and biting. She hit several of them over the head with bottles. She even climbed up on a table and jumped off, landing a flying kick right in the back of one girl and knocking her into two others. The club security and several of the male soldiers from the Lopez organization had tried to get Rennie off of them. Unfortunately, though, they had already gotten the tap from Stacks that Rennie was his girl. So they had to be real easy about how they handled Rennie. And needless to say, by the time it was all said and done, she'd beaten up 11 girls, 2 bar security, and 3 of the soldiers. And one of the soldiers had to call Stacks to come get her. When he showed up, he said, "Them people told me that you was in here hitting people with bottles. You flew and jumped off a table?" Rennie said, "I'm just saying." Stacks said, "Did you do all that?" Rennie said, "Whatever them people told you I did it. What you gonna do? We going back to the house to get it in, or you mad? Because I told you that I was gonna see that broad. And I guess you didn't believe me either. All she had to do was come back and apologize, and she didn't. I tried to tell you. I don't play about you, and I ain't gonna let nobody play in my face. Not even you." Stacks said, "Rennie, most of those people in that club know that Layla and her crew work for Manny. You just made them look stupid. You put a crack in their reputations. One woman just did all that damage." And before he could finish getting Rennie together, his phone rang. When he looked at the caller ID, it was Javier. He said, "Rennie, I told you, you could be a handful, but don't be a problem." When he answered the phone, he was shocked when Javier asked to speak to Rennie. He handed her the phone and just shook his head. He was even more shocked when he heard Rennie say, "Hey, Unc, I would apologize, but that girl was playing in my face, and I don't like that. No, they're not gonna die. I just needed the advantage. They'll be fine when they sleep it off. Well, how about this? You just buy Bellamy's. Then you ain't gotta worry about your people having a bad reputation and the club owner being upset, because you'll be the owner." Then Rennie laughed, hung up the phone, and handed it back to Stacks. Stacks was like, "What the hell you got on Manny? Because ain't no way he went for that." Rennie said, "I did him a solid. One that he won't soon forget. And he likes the way I think. If I don't know how to do nothing else, I know how to make the people in charge love me the long way. I got his back, and he got mine." Layla's going to be a little upset, though, because she just got demoted. When Stephanie finished running it all down to True, she said, "And speak of the devil, and she shall appear. Here you go." And she handed Rennie the phone. Before Rennie could find out who was on the other line, she heard True laughing hysterically. She immediately knew who was on the phone. True said, "Nigga, you crazy as hell. What on earth did that girl do to deserve all that?" Rennie said, "Oh, she wanted my man. And you know I ain't with none of that. Now that I'm done helping Stephanie here in Puerto Rico, you want me to head your way?" True said, "Hell no. You can keep all that in Puerto Rico." Rennie said, "But Angela told me that you was lonely." And True said, "I got some special guests who came all the way here to cure my loneliness. But I'll keep you posted if anything changes." When True hung up with her girls, she called Stacks. And after a brief conversation, she said, "I need to know everything that you know about Bosch's trip to Texas. And anything you don't know, you need to find out. And immediately let me know." Stacks said, "I feel like you questioning my loyalty. And that's not going to work. I've already done everything that I could to make sure I knew as little as possible about anything that would make it difficult for you and Wood to reunite. I didn't know that he was alive. And I was as shocked as anybody else to find out that Bosch had gone to Texas after his conversation with Manny. I had a conversation with that man in New York before he started his most recent assignment. I don't know that it would be a good idea for me to try to broach the subject with Q or Wood. And the soldiers on that property have no idea who was in that house. According to Bosch, Wood let him have his say. And then he told that man to walk away. He claims that his only reason for going to Texas was to answer any questions that Wood had, to assure him that his intent wasn't disrespect, and to ensure that you weren't alone. His concern for your well-being after his departure is what got him that broken wrist. Now that he knows that you're not alone, what Big Wood's intentions are, and that his job is on the line, he's done. He also knows that you hold his promotion in your hand, and the two of you are going to have to figure out how to work together when you return. Personally, I don't know how you work that out, because Big Wood is..." True said, "I didn't ask you all of that. Let me worry about Wood, and you keep an eye on Bosch. So we are clear. In case anyone else asks, Bosch did his job. Part of that job was helping me get through a very, very tough time. I used him for my own purposes, and I dismissed him when I was done. And that happened before you pulled him from the job. So you, Q, Wood, Manny, none of you ended things. I did. And while it wasn't serious to me, I suspected that it was more serious to him. He was not happy about me ending things, but he left here without complaint. If I had any reason to suspect that he was headed to Puerto Rico or planning to go to Texas, I would have told you that during our last phone call, the one where you questioned why I was calling you about him being pulled from the job. My concern was that he was adamant about keeping his word to Big Wood. And while I was glad to see that he was following orders and he hadn't let whatever we had going on interfere with his ability to do that, I did have questions about why he walked away so easily, considering the promise that he'd made to Wood. So if what he told you was true, then I think it's safe to conclude that he's not hung up on me. He can and will do his job with me as Stephanie's right hand. He wanted to ensure that I was taken care of. And having the information he needed, he moved on. Stack said, "Is that what you're going with, or is that what you really believe?" True said, "Absent evidence to the contrary, that's my position. So it's yours too. Unless you see or hear something that makes you question that. In which case, I need to be your first phone call." When Stacks agreed to that, True said, "Now, if you recall, when we had that last little situation, we had to make it clear to you, Wood, the soldiers, and anybody else who felt like what I did in my personal life should come under their scrutiny in my business life, that I am not your average woman, and I will not abide different expectations for the men than for the women." True was referring to that situation where that soldier had pushed up on her, and she ended his life, and lined all the other soldiers up, identified all the other ones who had an interest in her, and the ones who'd been engaging in inappropriate conversation about her, and had Stacks take them out too. She'd also made it clear to Wood that she did not need him bullying her employees. She made it clear to Stacks that he worked for her, so he did not need to run interference on Big Wood's behalf. True continued saying, "You got my best friend in Puerto Rico knocking broads' heads together, 'cause you ain't have no problem pooping where you ate." Stacks said, "Whatever me and Layla had going on is in the past. I told Rennie that. I told Layla that. So I don't understand why either one of them is kicking up all this dust. Rennie got niggas looking at me sideways like I can't control my girl. And Layla done got self-demoted." True said, "That's not even my point. My point is no one is questioning your ability to do your job, despite the fact that you were previously involved with someone who reports to you. I knew about it, and I never even questioned you. You and everybody else need to have that same energy when it comes to me and every other woman in the Lopez organization. You need to make it clear to everybody down the food chain that my business is my business, and that Layla was not demoted because of her personal situation with you. She was demoted because, like any other human being, she fell victim to her own emotions. She failed to conduct herself like a professional, let her feelings get her caught slipping, and compromise her safety and the safety of her team. And she did all of that in the public eye. Rennie is not a game. At this point, you should have figured that out. But Layla should have never got so comfortable that she could have even found herself in that situation. And that's the difference between she and I. Nothing and no one will stand between me and the life I've chosen for myself. I walked away from my whole family, and I'm an old pro at dropping niggas like bad habits. My track record speaks for itself, and I'm still her.
I've been solid. I stay out the way, yeah. Mama, business, get money and pray. Ain't gotta flex, my life say enough. Been through the struggle, I came out tough. Stay in my lane, I don't do the extra. Piece of a drama, that's how I'm better. Real calm, but don't get it confused.